Hi, everyone. We'll get started in 1 minute. Okay, we're going to get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the MRWAC All Stakeholders Meeting. We're glad you're here, and we'll go ahead and get started as we do have a full agenda today. I want to acknowledge the speakers who are joining us today. I'm the project manager for MRWAC, and I'm joining from Pacific Institute. We're grateful to our colleagues at Limnotech, as well as our project partners and implementers who are sharing their work throughout the meeting. I won't read through the full list, but you'll hear from everyone on this slide during the program. So thank you to all of our speakers for taking the time to join and contribute. Some webinar housekeeping. First of all, this webinar is being recorded and will be shared after the event. The main way that you, the audience, can engage is through the Q&A feature. You can post questions throughout the event, and then we'll also have 3 segments designated for Q&A. We'll also have a couple of polls. The poll results are anonymous to the entire group, but the MRWAC team ourselves, we can view the responses so that we can better understand the interest throughout our network, and this will help us inform future engagement. Okay, this brings us to our first poll. Our first poll is, who is in the room today? It has 2 parts to it. Part 1 is, what's your organization type? And then the second part is, what is your role in MRWAC? You may not yet know what your role in MRWAC is. You can just respond with your best guess. Or if you're exploring or you're unsure, you can put other. And so for the first part of the poll, you should see it popped up on your screen, either your company, nonprofit organization, government, philanthropy, or other. And then in terms of your role in MRWAC, if you're someone who's implementing projects, click that one. If you're someone who's funding or investing in projects, you choose that option. If you're providing technical support to an implementer or a funder, that would be you. Or if you're unsure or it's other, you can submit that one. And we'll give everyone a minute to respond. And I know folks are still rolling in as well. I'll give people probably 30 more seconds to respond. Hi, everyone. To everyone who's just joining in, we have started with a poll. Who is in the room, including what's your organization type, and then what is your role in MRWAC if you know it. If you're unsure or you're exploring, feel free to click that one. All right, I think we're going to close this poll. It looks like we have a good mix of corporate and nonprofit organizations, a few other types of organizations, and a really good mix of implementers and technical support and some project funders, and then some who are unsure or still exploring. So this is great. We're going to close the poll. What we want for you all today is to be able to leave this webinar knowing how best you can engage, and especially for those who are unsure what your role in MRWAC is. We're hoping that you can leave this webinar having a better understanding or knowing how best to follow up with us. For those who are just joining, feel free to use the Q&A feature throughout the entire meeting. We're going to have 3 designated segments for questions and answers, but this is going to be your main way to engage with us throughout the webinar. Okay, here's our agenda. We're going to start with welcomes and introductions. I've already done part of that, but I'm going to explain what MRWAC is after this. Then I'll hand it off to Anouk at Limnotech to talk about our goals throughout the Mississippi River Basin and within the subbasins. We'll go into a Q&A where we can answer any questions you have about MRWAC itself or our goals. After that is the really exciting part. We'll talk about our project portfolio, and we'll have spotlights from the 4 organizations who have projects that are currently in our portfolio. Finally, after that, we'll have another Q&A specifically for our guest speakers who are implementing projects. And then the next segment, we'll talk about the Basin Hub and our plan for 2026 and beyond. We'll have a final Q&A, and then we'll end with a call to action. As I mentioned, we want everyone to be able to leave this call today knowing how they can engage with MRWAC. What is the Mississippi River Water Action Collaborative? MRWAC is a collaborative network working across the Mississippi River Basin to advance water resilience. We bring together project implementers, companies, other partners to support on-the-ground projects that address shared water challenges. Our role is not to implement projects ourselves, but is to connect partners, align priorities, and support collective action through shared data, coordination, and basin-wide goals. And you'll see examples of that throughout the meeting today. This slide captures MRWAC's shared basin-wide goal, which is by 2035, our aim is to mobilize the funding and partnerships to support water stewardship projects that address the corporate fraction of the Mississippi River Basin's most pressing water challenges. That phrase is important. We're not suggesting that companies alone solve basin-wide water challenges, rather that MRWAC is focused on the portion of action and investment where companies can meaningfully contribute in collaboration with implementers, communities, and public partners. Collectively, we're aiming for this work to span approximately 24 million acres across the basin. And this goal was developed through a combination of scientific analysis and extensive stakeholder input. And you'll hear more about that in some upcoming slides. Before we dive into the technical details, I want to acknowledge the organizations that make MRWAC possible. This includes the project team that supports day-to-day coordination, the basin leaders and funding partners who are helping guide strategy and engagement, and our funding partners who support this work as well. MRWAC is a collaborative effort, and the progress you'll hear about today reflects the contributions of many organizations working together across the basin. I am going to hand it off to Anouk at Limnotech to talk about our basin-wide and sub-basin goals. And after that, we'll open it up for our first Q&A segment.
Great. Thanks, Christine. All right. So as Christine showed in an earlier slide, our basin-wide goal for the MRWAC is 24 million acres of stewardship by 2035. And this target was developed last year. It is rooted in the work and targets developed by the EPA's Hypoxia Task Force for the Mississippi River Basin, as well as based on published local and regional watershed restoration targets that are developed to address the primary stressors in the basins like flooding, droughts, and nutrient pollution. The goal was also developed in coordination with our stakeholders. And one thing Christine said earlier that is really important to note is that this 24 million acres for the MRWAC represents the estimated corporate fraction of larger restoration efforts that need to occur in the Mississippi River Basin to address all of the issues. In the map on the right, we show how that 24 million acre goal for the MRWAC is distributed amongst the 5 subbasins that make up the entire Mississippi River Basin. And that distribution of the acres generally correlates to basin size, the flow in the basin, the estimated nutrient contributions, and the land use characteristics in each of those subbasin. And that distribution also reflects where stewardship activities can provide the greatest impact on water quality, water quantity, and ecosystem health, which is the ultimate goal here of restoration activities. So the intent of these goals, these acreages, are to provide a clear shared target for the MRWAC partners. And this gives us a sense of scale for project development, for project investments, and collaborations across the watershed. Next slide, please. Okay, so while our primary goal, our North Star for the MRWAC is 24 million acres of stewardship across the entire basin, we also provided translations of this goal to a volumetric water quantity goal, as well as a water quality goal. And we've done this to recognize that some corporations may have internal goals that are perhaps more focused on volumetric water benefits. Some may have goals more focused on water quality benefits. Some may be fine with an area goal, but we wanted to provide that translation between the 24 million acres and a water quantity goal and a water quality goal, just so that we can be aligned with how corporations define and track their own internal sustainability targets. So our methodology to translate from 24 million acres to a water quantity goal, which is that left green circle, we calculated the median volumetric water benefit per acre of stewardship activity. And the way we did that is that we used Limnotech's database of 87 replenish projects in the United States that have been implemented in the last 15 years. And we used VWBA methods, volumetric water benefit accounting methods, which some of you might be familiar with, to calculate what that volumetric benefit is on average per acre. And then we multiplied that benefit by the 24 million acres to calculate the overall water quantity goal that you see on the screen here of 3,900 billion gallons per year. On the right, in that right-hand green circle, we show the water quality goal, and the way we translated the 24 million acres to that water quality goal, we focused on the nutrients, phosphorus and nitrogen, and we estimated the expected reductions in nutrient pollution that we would get from restoring 24 million acres from high pollutant yield areas to low pollutant yield areas. And we did that using scientifically backed land use based pollutant loading rates. And so using this approach, we calculated a water quality goal of 119,000 tons per year of nitrogen reduction and 6,500 tons per year of phosphorus reduction. So these translations between area and volume or between area and quality provide a methodology and approach to report water quantity or water quality of a restoration activity, but it allows us to roll everything back up to that primary goal of reaching 24 million acres by 2035. And what's not shown on this slide is that these water quantity and water quality goals are also distributed amongst the 5 subbasins. similar to what was shown on the previous slide. And we're not showing it here and just in the interest of time, but if you would like to see that distribution, please reach out after the meeting and we can share that with you as well. All right, that is all I had for the goal translation. So I think the next slide is Q&A. If anyone has any questions on this very high level and brief overview of our goals.
Thanks, Anouk.
Thanks, Anouk.
Yeah, I'm Laura Weintraub, and I'm happy to help coordinate any Q&A that comes up right now. As Christine said, we've got a series of breakpoints throughout our presentation today, and we really encourage all to drop a question in the chat. The only question I've seen so far is whether or not we'll be sharing materials after the meeting, and absolutely we will. We'll be sharing it with those who are on the call live today, as well as those who registered and maybe couldn't join us. Are there any questions from those listening in on how we've really the structure of MRWAC, the origins, the drivers, as well as the goals that we've presented and Anouk shared with us, kind of focusing on that land area, and then also recognizing that the co-benefits of projects with volume and water quality could also be tracked in parallel.
Kevin, go ahead.
I know I'm too short on time, but
Sure.
I just kind of want to hear a little bit more about what you all do. It's just kind of it was just doing this work that I'm doing and listening to what you all said. I just figure I can learn so much more from you all, and so I guess it's just the slides one and the time we have today just wouldn't benefit me. But if we had some more time, I kind of want you to elaborate just a little bit more on that work. But I know we're short of time, and so I guess we can.
Yeah, we're not short on time right now. We have about 13 minutes or so for Q&A. So we have time. We're not trying to rush to the next segment quite yet.
Oh, and it was Oh, go ahead. Good.
Oh yeah, you can go ahead with your question. We have about 13 minutes before we move into the project spotlights.
And then once you had that one of those slides, I was just trying to just get a good feel about what exactly you all do, because it sounds like it seemed like it's kind of related to the watershed work that we do here in Arkansas. And I just wanted to hear a little bit more about when you was talking about the basins and everything. I saw Arkansas on there and how y'all arrived to that 24 million acres.
Yeah, would you like me to take that, Christine, or no?
Sure, feel free, Laura.
Okay, yeah, I can jump in a little bit. I guess just to kind of dial it way back is the whole driver of MRWAC is to try to realize that collaborative action, working together, can be more powerful, looking at different sources of funding to put actions in the ground. And so the idea here is that bringing together the corporate sector, the implementing partners like yourself, who are working on putting projects in the ground and making them visible to a wide range of entities that might want to support these actions. Being able to really coordinate and collaborate and find creative ways to fund this work. And then in concert, once the projects are implemented, be able to track the progress. And so what we've done is, from the Basin Collaborative standpoint, is set a goal so that over the next approximately 10 years, we can see how we're doing as far as moving towards that goal. I will add that the goal is articulated as 24 million acres of restoration or stewardship in the basin. It does not mean that all projects need to be land-based projects. Some of them could be more infrastructure related or really, and I think Christine will get into sort of the diversity of projects that we've identified, and a lot of different kinds of water stewardship relevant projects could fall under that 24 million acres and translated in such a way that they could be tracked to see how we're achieving progress towards this target on the whole basin level. So I guess to one more point to add is that a strong objective here is to introduce these different groups together. I think this is the first time I got to meet you today, Kevin, and it's great. So I can't wait to hear about the work that you're working in your with your group, and making sure that those opportunities are visible to the corporate sector, and so that if there's interest to help support those initiatives, there's a pathway to make that happen. So I guess Christine and Anouk, anything else to add on?
I'll just add that last year at about this time, we did a presentation to the stakeholder group that talks a little bit more about the approach we took to develop that target. So Kevin, we can share that with you, or we can share that with anyone, really. And that might provide a little bit more information on how we developed that target. And then related to that target, I see a message or a question from Sarah about how we calculated the corporate proportion in the Mississippi River Basin. So I just wanted to address that real quick. That we estimated that based on corporate presence in the Mississippi River Basin. And we used some publicly available data sets from EPA, and there's one more that escapes my mind right now, but that provides locations of various different industry types in the watershed. And through that, we extrapolated that corporate presence as a fraction, 20% fraction is what we estimated being that we assigned to the corporate sector.
Great. Thanks, Anouk. Right. If no other questions, I guess we could move on, and I'll just encourage everybody that while the next speakers are flowing through, feel free to answer any question. If it was on that foundational introduction, fantastic. We'll have time to return back to that, or questions that are more relevant to the portfolio that Christine's going to be introducing in a minute. So drop them in the chat and we'll be happy to answer. I think there is one more question. Yeah, I just see Nabia entered one. Why don't we take that? With the translation of the target from acres to volume and quality, is the idea that companies can pick and choose which one they contribute to, or is acres still the required and the other two can be added on? So I think I can take a stab at that if that's helpful. The idea is that for a given project, say it was wetland restoration, there might be multiple ways to articulate the benefits of that project. And so it could be 100 acres of restoration that provided a 50 million gallon benefit of infiltration, so that volumetric benefit, and then perhaps a reduction in nutrient loading as well. And in that particular project, I think all three metrics could be logically tracked. And so we do see the acres target as being the overarching kind of roll-up target. So our aim is to, for every project, figure out a way to either directly acknowledge and quantify the area that has been under stewardship action, or if it's like an infrastructure project, how do we logically translate that to sort of a representative area that's been improved? The other tracking along the other metrics as far as quality or volume, I would see those are more optional, but we're hoping for at least every project we can look at it along these different currencies or different representations of benefits and try to track them in parallel. But the primary tracking will be on that area metric. Anything to add on that, Anouk?
No, I think that's good. We hope that we can roll everything up, like you said, to the overarching primary goal of acres, but most projects will likely have one or multiple of those metrics, and we'll track as many of those metrics as we can and use translations if needed.
Great, thank you. I see two more questions. So one from Julie about why the 20% was selected. And I think maybe just to kind of reiterate on that, Anouk, it's the proportion of the representative proportion of the corporate sector within the basin.
That's right. The corporate footprint as we estimated it, correct. And that 24 million acres represents includes that 20%.
Yeah, it's adjusted to represent the 20%. Right. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, great. And then a question from JC. How are you defining acres under restoration? And how are you considering agricultural based projects? So I can take that one. as far as acres under restoration, many projects, as we'll see in the portfolio in a minute, do have a sort of a spatial component to them. And so if that is part of the project construction or characteristics, we would take that information directly. And if that is not directly a direct attribute of the project, we would articulate a way to do our best representation of how to translate that to an area. And I'm not remembering exactly, Anouk, off the top of my head, but I don't know if there's an example we could speak to on how we might do that translation if it's not focused on an area component to start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we came up with some average unit conversions. So, for example, if your project is purely a volume reduction project, like a reduction in irrigation of an agricultural field, but doesn't really have an area associated with it. We did come up with some unit conversions to convert that volume reduction to an equivalent area that we can count towards that 24 million acres. We have a bunch of extra slides attached to this presentation. Maybe if we have time at the end of the meeting, we can show you what those unit conversions are, or they can be shared after the meeting too.
Great. Thanks, Anouk. And then a second part of the question is how we're considering agricultural-based projects. And I would say, given the characteristics of the Mississippi Basin, ag is huge. It's a huge component of the land use. And so absolutely those projects will be part of the portfolio, and some of them might include practices such as like if there's irrigation changes, but cover crops, regenerative ag, nutrient management. And given sort of the history of water stewardship projects and how to quantify the benefits of those, as per VWBA, like Anouk mentioned, many different types of agricultural projects would fit nicely into this program and be trackable as far as the benefits. All right. And then Jeff has a question. Have we established the account rules for the overall goal? If a corporate invests 50% and a government entity invests 50%, do we count 50% of the outcomes towards the goal or 100% of the outcomes? And I don't know if Christine, do you have an answer for that one?
I don't have, we haven't gotten into the part where we're actually accounting. Right now, we've been identifying projects and we're trying to get together the funding and partnerships for them. Our goal is to unite the funding and partnerships primarily for the 24 million acres. So I think that we would count the 100% of the outcomes. But I think that's something that we would, I think we need to deliberate on that.
All right. Do we have time for like one or two more?
Yeah,
Christine?
we have,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Okay, Margot asked, is this target for incremental impact or inclusive of projects already underway? Good question. Like, when does the clock start, I think is what she's asking to consider. And I don't know if we have a clear answer on that. I mean, I think if, Christine, did you have any thoughts to share?
Sure. It's not inclusive of projects already underway. Starting next year, that's when we start counting all of the projects in our portfolio. So regardless of whether or not a project receives funding because of MRWAC itself, if there's a project in our portfolio and it's received new funding starting next year, that's when we start, that's where we begin aggregating the impact, if that makes sense.
Great, thank you. And then one final question, and then maybe we'll move on. Does the estimated corporate footprint on which the goal is based include agricultural value chains, scope 3, or only owned facilities, scope 1? I think if a corporate entity, agricultural supply chains, value chains, yes, they definitely would play into this program. If a if a corporate is interested in supporting a project and maybe they're a food and beverage company, but they have a value chain component in the Mississippi Basin, it might be very impactful for them to help support projects in that in their value chain. And I think it's really up to the individual company how they report their own benefits, their own contribution towards benefit created. But as far as MRWAC is concerned, those projects would definitely be aggregated underneath that 24 million acre goal.
And we'll take one more question from Jennifer. I did try to unmute you, Jennifer. If
Yeah.
you're unable to
thank you.
Okay, great.
I was unable to stick anything in the chat, so I tried the hand raising option. I wanted to just continue to understand a little bit this question around how corporates contribute and then the allocation of that. So if I'm trying to understand if there's a new project or there's an existing project and a corporate wants to contribute, and I assume by contribute we're talking as a percentage of the total budget. And so let's just say a corporate participates and its contribution represents 30% of the total project budget. Does that mean that 30% of the outcomes of that project go back to that corporate? How does that part work? Or is there a separate negotiation there?
So typically in volumetric benefit accounting or water stewardship efforts, we do a sort of a pro rata cost sharing approach. So like you said, if a company were to contribute 30% of the overall budget, and let's say the volumetric benefit was 100 units, their direct benefit that they might be able to report on their sustainability program would be that scaled 30 units rather than the 100. And that's really something that is specific to an individual company that may be of interest to support MRWAC. But I'll take a step back and say one of the objectives of MRWAC is to make sure we're looking for that public-private partnership or multiple funding pathways. And so the most important thing is to see if that 100% can get funded. And then we would be looking at how best to report those benefits towards the overall MRWAC goal. And the accounting of what proportion goes to individual corporates, that's something that there is precedent for that, I think, with existing water stewardship programs, but I don't think we want to get too hung up on that as part of the overall MRWAC initiative. So great.
Thanks, Laura. And I see
Thank
that
you.
we have one more question from Kyle in the chat. We do have to move on, but Kyle, if we aren't able to answer it on the call, we'll make sure to follow up via email. All right. Moving on to the next slide. Okay, now we're moving on to the project portfolio overview and the spotlights from our guest speakers. We're going to give an overview of what the eligibility criteria are for projects in our portfolio. And we're also going to have the 4 organizations who have projects in our portfolio share information about the work that they're doing. So our goal is to create a clear and transparent pathway for implementers and companies to engage, whether it's through project funding, partnership, development, or collaboration across the basin. This map shows the current MRWAC project portfolio as of today. Each numbered point represents a project in the portfolio with the corresponding organization and project name listed in the legend. These projects are available for partnership and funding, and together they reflect a wide range of water challenges that we're working on throughout the basin. And so again, you'll hear directly from all 4 of these organizations in a few minutes. And so this map is meant to give you a sense of where current opportunities exist, but this portfolio is dynamic. New projects can be added through our project intake process, which I'll talk about more later. And just moving into 2026 and beyond, we'll continue to add more projects to our portfolio. Okay, so we have another poll. This is a high level, but we want to get a sense of where everyone, the locations throughout the Mississippi River Basin that's relevant to your work or interests. It's very exploratory, and it's just to give us a sense of where the interests are, whether they're distributed throughout the basin or if they're concentrated in one sub-basin over another. So let's go ahead and launch that poll. If we can, let me see if I can launch it. Okay. This is not going to behold you to anything. It's really an exploratory question for everyone on the call to get a sense of where the interests are. I'll give about 20 more seconds for responses, but it looks like the interest is pretty distributed, which is great. And as you saw on the previous slide, there's some basins that have more concentrated projects in our portfolio right now than others. And so it just signals to us to make sure that we're focusing on some of the other basins as well. All right, let's close the poll. Okay, here are our project eligibility criteria. This is a very high-level summary. We do have a separate document that outlines in detail what the eligibility criteria are that we can share with you offline. But I just wanted to give a high-level overview of what the criteria are. First, all projects must address a shared water challenge in the Mississippi River Basin. We generally categorize the challenges into water quantity, which could include scarcity or flooding, water quality, which could include nutrients or other pollutants, or water access, which includes access to drinking water, wastewater, or stormwater services. The other criteria is that projects must deliver measurable benefits and demonstrate change beyond what would have happened without the project. We use widely recognized accounting frameworks where possible, and at minimum, the requirement is that the project has screening level estimates of the benefits in advance. It's also important to emphasize that MRWAC projects deliver voluntary, non-compliance-driven benefits. These projects are not undertaken solely to meet regulatory requirements. Another criteria is that all projects included in the portfolio must have a clear pathway to track and report impacts, and they are required to report progress annually through the Basin Hub. Just to make sure that everything is transparent and up to date in our own aggregating of benefits across the projects. In addition to these essential criteria, we do have a number of optional attributes that aren't mandatory but may increase the project's likelihood of success. This includes the project's readiness to implement, the scalability of the project, innovation, and others. We consider these attributes holistically, but they're not requirements. And then finally, we also have a supplemental set of screening criteria for community water resilience projects. These are intended for organizations and companies that are interested in projects that are designed to deliver the greatest impact to communities. And community water resilience projects must be located in underserved communities and demonstrate meaningful community benefit. And we have several screening criteria for that. These criteria are applied to in addition to the core MRWAC requirements, and are they're there in case there is an investor or company interested in prioritizing benefits to communities first. We don't apply supplemental criteria to every project in the portfolio. Again, like I just said, they're there in certain instances when there's a specific interest in certain types of projects. We're always happy to share more detail offline. We will be sharing the eligibility criteria document after the webinar. Okay, with that, we're going to get into the exciting part, which is the project spotlights. We're going to start with Jeff at Ducks Unlimited, and I'm going to see if Jeff is able to unmute himself. Okay. Great. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, thanks, Christine. Thanks, everybody, for joining today. I probably know about half of you and maybe not so much the other half. So Ducks Unlimited is a wetlands conservation organization started in 1937. For the very first few years or several years, we invested in Canada because that's where most ducks come from. But in 1984, we started investing in the United States. And since 1984, Ducks Unlimited has advanced conservation on 7.5 million acres in the Mississippi River watershed. So we're excited to continue that. Our goal is to continue that pace as well as increase it. So we're excited to see this come together. What I'm going to talk about today, as you saw the list, we've got a bunch of stuff in here and happy to talk about any of it. But one of our biggest projects and programs is our rice stewardship partnership alongside of USA Rice. And so that there's lots of words on this screen, and I'll save them for when you have the chance to look at this after. But the ultimate goal of Ducks Unlimited is to conserve rice agriculture on the landscape. It's really good for waterfowl. It's really good for the area. It's good for water if managed properly. And so we started that effort in 2013. So we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. We've reached almost 1 million acres of conservation in agriculture. And currently our budget, thanks to what's now called AMP grants, our budget is $20 million per year over the next probably 3 years, implementing a lot of that grant. Like as you could see, it operates in the Mississippi Alluvial Valley. There is a part of it that operates in California, and so we'll talk to another group about that. But you could see the progress that we've made with staffing it and getting people, where they can actually meet with farmers and help them be successful. And then we've got an awesome ecosystem services group that's calculated a lot of the outcomes that are coming out of the work that we're doing there. And so the work is everything from water management, trying to move growers from groundwater to surface water, water holding, pump efficiencies, very, very water focused, but there's a lot of outcomes that come along with that, and including climate outcomes with alternative wetting and drying, etc. But it's there's already quite a few corporate partners that are part of this partnership, but we're happy to have more because a lot of the federal and even state monies that we get require a private match. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Jeff. And as Jeff mentioned, there are Ducks Unlimited has projects throughout the basin. If you have questions or interest about those, feel free to put it in the Q&A. There's also a lot of detail here on this slide, and there's a second slide outlining the project benefits. So you all will receive the slides after, and you'll be able to read this in more detail. Thank you, Jeff. Next, I'm going to hand it off to Kevin at the Arkansas Black Mayors Association to talk about the Arkansas watershed mitigation projects.
Hello, everybody. And thank you, Dr. Curtis, for allowing us to be here to share a little bit about the ARCs. Can y'all hear me really well? I want to make sure, because I talk very low.
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Dr. Curtis, for just thinking about us, and thank the whole team just trying to be a part of the work that we are doing. The Arkansas Black Mayors Association was established in, I think, 1972. We kind of like 50 years. We're behind a lot of organizations within the state. But what we are doing around here is just trying to improve the lives of those people in the communities that we serve. And one of the things that at the top of our list of things to do with the Arkansas Black Mayors, based on our constituents, based on our membership mayors, is water, is flooding. And water, just water in general, but flooding is at the top of that when you talk about water, because we do have sewer problems, we do have pump problems, water pump problems. It's just water problems, something with water that's involved. But this particular project here, what we're doing is called the Watershed Project. I think PL 655, I can't remember right now, but Frank maybe can tell you. What we found out was we got here to the project because people, I guess over 100 years ago, purchased these properties, the only properties they could afford in these water flooded areas. And they have been dealing with this flooding ever since. That was the only property they can afford and build on. and those bought that land and those houses in the area, knowing that it was flooding. But they always hope that at some point, one day, that the government will come out and just kind of rectify the problem. In other words, and that never happened. And we just thank God that we was able to tap into some resources that was available from the USDA to get us started. And we right now we have 19 projects, and out of 19 projects, only 5 of those projects are fully funded. And out of the rest of the 5, some go from PIFR to planning to design, and we have 5 of them that's funded all the way to design. And those are the projects we are looking for help with all our projects, but we understand that right now, even with you dealing with organizations that sometimes those projects that's shovel ready will be the ones that more likely to get funded for something, which brings us to these projects that we are working on right now that's presented to you all. It's Alzheimer, Arkansas, Dumas, El Dorado, Eudora, Louisville, and Stamps, Arkansas. So those are 5 projects that we're working on. And in those 5 projects, they've been dealing with flooding for so long. And from the city of Little Rock, I have never dealt with flooding. Just understanding what flooding is by working with these people in these towns, learning that water comes up to their windows. Water prevents them from going to the grocery store. Water just disrupt their lives and overall. And so we're excited about trying to work with you all on this project. And in this project, the work that's been done is something that may be simple to you all is challenging for some of these small cities and towns because they don't have the capacity or the workforce to do it. Just cleaning out ditches, cleaning out culverts, disrupting the streams that has been flooded with trees and beavers and everything. So it's a lot that goes on to why a person areas is flooded. And these are people that live in these communities, like I said, that's been prevented from to just go to the grocery store when it rains. You have to think about the mental part of it when when it starts raining. If it's raining for one day, they panicking. But if it rains for 2 or 3 days, like it does a lot here in Arkansas, they really go into a stage of what I'm going to do, trying to get out that area before it rains more than the day that they used to do is raining in. And so when we're dealing with this, we're thinking about what this work would do and how it would benefit those people. For once, kids will be able to go to school. That's very important to go to school. Parents will be able to go to work every day. The grocery store wouldn't be a problem, considering that most of these small city towns have to drive 15, 20 miles out to go to a grocery store. But just removing that water is one of the greatest things that can ever happen. Like I say, we're working with 19 cities, and 5 of them was fully funded. 5 went to designs, and the other was left with planning and design. We understand that this will save just even having a PIFR, which is regularly costs us about $50,000, and planning can be up from 300 to another million. So we are saving some of these cities money, but they just still don't have the tax base to be able to cover a 50,000, 300,000, nor be able to cover all the way up to construction. And so that's what we're looking for, other partners to help us remove some of that water of these people community. One of the things I like about these projects is it's going to help a lot of people. And people are excited in all those communities that you see on here. People are excited about one day they one step closer for water coming down their driveway. The thing about this, just replacing culverts, retentions, cleaning out ditches, and doing some more things to kind of strategic plans, navigating some of the things to make the water go where it should go. One city in particular, Eudora, Arkansas, is something new that we just learned about because me and Frank are not expert in watershed. We just applied for the grant and received the grant. So we are learning as we go. I'm sure somebody else could just talk about this all day long. This is something we just figuring out as we go. We listen to the firms and our project managers. But Eudora, Arkansas, we had a firm that came in called Headway. Environmental came in and they introduced us to something different, which is called nature-based. And nature-based is if you are not familiar with it, it's kind of that helps restore and maintain and protect the natural flow of the water, like streams and stuff. So Eudora, Arkansas chose this firm called Headway Nature, it does nature-based. And when we looked at the plans and the vision that they had for the city, we got excited because not only is this nature-based restoring some of the old streams, that has turned into ditches now. Like you got to think about it. These used to be streams around their community. They turned into ditches, but they also creating a greenway trail for them, or a greenway trail loop in Eudora, Arkansas, which is going to create bike trails, walking trails, which are going to create just opportunity for the community to get out and have fun and enjoy it. So we're just excited about these 5 projects that you all have before them. We're hoping that we are one of the ones that get selected because we understand the impact. And this flood prevention piece is very important to us. And we respect the Natural Wildlife Federation and everybody. We just want to make sure that these people can be able to live peaceful when rain is come pouring down in our communities. But like I said, the benefits from the nature-based, the benefits from just adding covers, removing covers, cleaning out ditches, it's going to really benefit all those small cities and towns that you see before you. And that's pretty much what I have. I just try to make sure I stay within the confines of the time that we have here.
Yes. Thank you so much, Kevin. And if any of you have questions or comments for Kevin, please post those in the Q&A, because we will reserve time for questions and answers with the project implementers. All right, and there is a second slide here that you can review that details the project benefits, and we'll share that again. We'll share the slides with you offline, so you'll get to see the second slide. All right, next I'm going to hand it off to Taylor at Restore the Earth Foundation.
Thank you, Christine. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us today. We're excited to be part of this initiative. I'm the executive director of Restore the Earth Foundation. We're a nonprofit project developer who has restored over 250,000 acres in the Gulf Coast. Our mission is to restore 1 million acres of land in the Mississippi River Basin. So that spans both the Arkansas Basin that you saw on the map and the lower Mississippi River Basin. And we're well on our way. We have 2 portfolios of projects that I'm going to mention today. The one that we have a slide for is the Arkansas work, and then I'll also talk about our Louisiana work. We have an initiative called Reforest Arkansas, which is in partnership with the USDA NRCS. We piloted our first program with them this year, which is basically working with private landowners who are interested in permanent conservation easements on their land. But kind of like Kevin was talking about, they have a lot of flooding issues with the Mississippi River and its tributaries. So they don't have the means to do the restoration themselves. So they look for partnerships with the NRCS. And then we've become part of this with Restore the Earth, where we will come in and restore the land at no cost to them. They get a permanent conservation easement, which gives them the permanence of the restoration and all the co-benefits, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And then you get that enhanced buffer to prevent nutrient runoff, prevent flooding, mitigate risk, but also the water quality and quantity benefits as well. So this was a pilot. We weren't too sure because another function is we're a project developer for both water and carbon. And we weren't sure how private landowners would feel about that. And so the initial solicitation was for 10,000 acres. And we are pleased to say that we actually got about 20,000 acres in applications from private landowners. So they're very interested in this. And right now we're working through that process at the moment. Christine, would you turn to the next slide, please? And this is just a snapshot of the benefits from this portfolio of projects. These little dots here are lands that we've identified through this process. I don't have any specific numbers like some of my other speakers because it's plug and play. It depends on the funder, the area of interest, and the area of impact. But there's volumetric water benefits that we calculate, water quality improvements we calculate, as well as the soil quality, the reduction of soil runoff, the carbon sequestration. It's all baked in. We have these projects registered on carbon registries if that's of interest to the funder. We also have our ecometrics process, which is a reporting process that aggregates all of this data. So the funder can have access to what are the water quality benefits, what are the volumetric benefits, but also what are the biodiversity benefits, the habitat benefits. And as Laura mentioned, when you're looking at restoring acres, there's, it meets a number of these needs. So there's also the socioeconomic benefits, the co-benefits. And one of the things that I love about this program, and you may have heard in Arkansas especially, well, actually it's nationwide, that one of the biggest issues is trying to keep land in generational ownership. And a lot of farmers are having issues doing that because they're dealing with a lot of financial burdens and it's hard to keep the land. So what we also love about this project is it provides these landowners with an opportunity to keep the land in their family, generate some income, and protect their land, but also enhance their land so that they can have the hunting, the fishing, all the things they love. And then there's also the carbon, the water, and all the things that we love and we like to participate in as project developers with our funders. There is the other portfolio, which is slightly different. It is not with private landowners. It is with one public landowner. This is our work in the state of Louisiana. We've been doing this work for about 20 years 15 years with the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. They are a state agency which owns 1.6 million acres of land from top to bottom, from Gulf Coast all the way to the border of Arkansas. And we have a unique partnership with them that we've developed over 15 years, where when we find funders who are interested in restoration projects, we can bring them in, identify the appropriate site, and have access to that land to restore it. And what's exciting about the Louisiana opportunity, and I'm sure many of you might be aware, is the state of Louisiana has a water quality trading program. And actually, a few of our projects are registered with LDEQ for this water quality trading program. And we do have water quality credits that are ready today to be transacted. So if you're interested, happy to share our information. And my colleague, Ed Pinero, is also here to answer any questions as well during the Q&A. But for example, with our Restore the Earth Louisiana projects, looking at the numbers of the goals per acre per year, I can tell you that they exceed the per acre targets for both water quality and water quantity derived from the 24 million acre goal that I think it was Laura. Well, that is the initiative for this whole group. So, and then all the project benefits are very similar in terms of co-benefits, biodiversity, habitat, socioeconomic. So we're really excited about our work, and we're excited about the opportunity to work with groups like the membership of MRWAC. So happy to answer questions later, and thank you for the time.
Thank you so much, Taylor. And everyone, as Taylor mentioned, Taylor and her colleague Ed will be available during the Q&A. So get your questions ready. We have one more project spotlight, and I'm going to advance to the next slide here and hand it off to Lee at Indigo Ag.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Christine, and great to see you all. We're really thrilled to be supporting this initiative. So I'm Lee, I'm with Indigo Ag. I'm a director on our Sustainability Solutions team, and Indigo, as just a quick overview, is a project developer and an MRV, or measurement reporting verification provider, in the regenerative agriculture space. As you can see on the map here, this is one of our main, a snapshot of the enrollment for one of our main project types, where essentially we design and implement regenerative agriculture programs. And again, a couple different types of ways we work, but the one I'm highlighting here today is really a proactive program structure. So we work with farmers and partners on the ground to enroll those farmers who've adopted new regenerative agriculture practices. In the context here, focusing primarily on cover crop adoption and transition to no-till or reduced tillage practices. And then we quantify the outcomes associated with those practices in different ways that are meaningful for a wide set of stakeholders. These are participating in a carbon offsetting program through the Climate Action Reserve, so registry issued offsets. We also look at lower emissions intensity crops, so more supply chain oriented. And then, of course, the focus for today is looking at the water outcomes associated with the adoption of these new regenerative practices. And so, the snapshot on the left here is, our general footprint from one point in time. This is an ongoing project. We're always enrolling more acres into this program. But for the purpose of a case study, if you could advance one slide or one click, Christine. Wanted to narrow in on Indiana. This is a snapshot from 2023 crop cycle of our footprint in Indiana in this project. We've leveraged the volumetric water benefit accounting approach to model and estimate the surface water runoff reduced from the regenerative practices in scope here. There are about 100,000 acres in the data you're seeing here in Indiana, which is estimated to have generated about 963 million gallons of surface water runoff reduced, a tongue twister, from implementing those in-scope practices from 2023. If you advance one more, Christine, narrowing in even more, as you think about how localized the stories and the impact can really be in these types of programs. I've highlighted one county here in central Indiana, where you can see we had about 10,000 acres and 76 estimated gallons of runoff reduced, million gallons of runoff reduced. Again, just to give the idea of how there's this large footprint, but then we also can look at, very local specific stories. In terms of key stakeholders, we work with a wide breadth of partners across the US, but looking at Indiana specifically, Corteva is one of our main on-the-ground partners in terms of how we reach farmers and having that on-the-ground presence. In terms of the types of corporate partners that are already engaging with us in this context, American Honda Motors is one example. They have a footprint in Indiana. From a manufacturing standpoint, they want to support farmers adopting these regenerative practices that have these multifaceted benefits from carbon, water, broader ecosystem health, Microsoft and others. And while those are mentioned, certainly it is not a full program. So there's a lot of opportunities for new stakeholders to join this existing set of practices, set of program structures in very localized ways. So if you maybe want to go to the next slide, Christine, and can look at the benefits. There are different ways that this can be structured based on what is meaningful to a company as we look at the overall goals for this initiative. The water quantity and water quality are very clear matches. The water quantity metrics are not something we've already estimated for this specific scope, but is absolutely within the possibility for us to quantify with our modeling and our measurement approach. So very happy to answer more questions around what that would look like. And then from a broader set of co-benefits standpoint, we have estimated and modeled the emissions reduced and removed. So looking at sequestration from these regenerative practices in the same snapshot in Indiana, there were about 45,000 metric tons of CO2e sequestered primarily in that 2023 crop scope. And then in terms of how we think about engaging farmers and the broader socioeconomic engagement, this project commits to 75% of the revenue from the project going to farmers. So that improved farmer profitability and rural resiliency component is really critical and something that we emphasize both in how the practices that are supported are structured so that it's working towards a more profitable and resilient operation, but then also that financial incentive to help with the transition is making its way back to farmers. So pause there, happy to answer questions. We also have projects in other geographies, but that's, I'll leave it at that for now, but looking forward to the rest of the conversation. Thank you all so much.
Great,
Thank
thank
you,
you, Lee.
Lee. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, no, I'll just jump in. I know this was really great information shared by all four presenters, really a strong diversity of projects in different geographies, different activity types. So really exciting to showcase all those. We do want to try to keep on agenda. So there's one question that came in for Lee from Jennifer. It says, are the project outcomes of carbon and water sold together to the same company, or does water go to some and carbon goes elsewhere?
Yeah, this is a great question. So really, we are flexible. Traditionally, additionality is something that's really mattered to stakeholders in this context. And so when you think about additionality, there should be a clear tie from an investment to an outcome or a practice change. And so in those cases, I think what we've landed on is it's most appropriate for one company to be able to claim both the carbon and the water together, if that is the way they are wishing to kind of operate that relative impact narrative. They've supported that practice change on 1 acre, and thus they can talk about the narrative across both carbon and water from that action. However, I think there are, especially in the case of some of these more collective action platforms, there is the opportunity to have more creative co-investment structures where we can say, you know, one entity cares more about a lower emissions crop in their inventory, and the other entity cares more about a water claim and supporting this sort of initiative. We are really happy to help match together those kind of different goals to have a more pooled investment where, you know, carbon and water are two pieces from the same acre, but would just look at it on a kind of a case by case basis based on how different entities are interested in that additionality claim versus supporting broader kind of collective action in a region.
Great, thanks, Lee. And I'll just add on real quick to that, not being an expert in the carbon accounting, and I know the space is very different, but in the water space, for those not familiar, traditionally, the water benefits are attributed to different co-funders, basically on that cost share basis. So I envision for this effort, the water piece, we would want to maintain that best practice that's typically in place rather than one company taking all the carbon benefits and another company taking all the water benefits, but a bigger topic to make sure we work through later. So I would suggest that others can answer questions in the chat as they come up. I'll try to do the same, but we should probably keep going with our presentation.
Yes, and what we can do is we have one more segment which highlights what the Basin Hub is and what our plans are for 2026. What I'll try to do is I'll go through that quickly so that we can get back to the Q&A. And so if you have questions for the project implementers, feel free to post those during that speaking segment so we can get to those, because I do want to make sure if there's questions for the implementers that we get to those on the call today. So I'm happy to go a little bit more quickly through the Basin Hub slides. Okay, so let's advance. All right, this segment is all about the Basin Hub and our work plan for next year. The Basin Hub is the shared infrastructure that underpins MRWAC's collective action work. It's a centralized platform where projects in our portfolio are tracked, reported, and visualized. At a high level, it tracks core outcomes like volumetric water benefits, water quality improvements, water access outcomes, and also progress towards our 24 million acres of stewardship goal. The consistency is what allows us to look at projects across geographies rather than looking at an individual project. There's also an additional monitoring part to the Basin Hub, which was developed by the Water Resilience Coalition in partnership with the European Space Agency. This is a satellite-based monitoring system that helps contextualize project outcomes within broader basin conditions, such as land use change and hydrologic trends. And it helps strengthen the credibility of our reporting over time. My colleague, Todd Player, who leads the development of the Basin Hub, is here on the call today and is available during the Q&A segment if there's questions about the Basin Hub. The reason why the hub matters is it allows us to look across the basin in a consistent way, as I mentioned, and track progress towards our shared goals. It helps us identify gaps and it helps us with transparent reporting. Implementers can use it to upload their projects if they once they make it past the eligibility criteria, and companies can use it, or funders can use it to understand where opportunities exist for collective action or collaboration. So the hub is not just a database. We're building it out to be the connective tissue that is enabling collaboration throughout the entire Mississippi River Basin. So if you're interested in engaging, there's a few simple steps to getting on the Basin Hub. And it also depends on if you're a company or if you're an implementing organization. But if you're interested in engaging in the Basin Hub, the first thing that you would do is add your organization or your project to the Water Action Hub. The Water Action Hub is our publicly available platform where we basically crowdsource all water stewardship projects. When you add your project or organization to the Water Action Hub, it allows you to select locations of interest. That's what will flag. If you're selecting locations in the Mississippi River Basin, that's what will flag to MRWAC that you're interested in the Mississippi River Basin. And then after that, once you've added your organization or projects to the hub, you just contact us at MRWAC@pacins.org. And either you're interested in gaining access to the Basin Hub to look at the portfolio projects, or maybe you're interested in gaining access to the Basin Hub to potentially add your project to the portfolio. That's how you get to that point. And in terms of our priorities for next year, one major area of focus is continuing to strengthen the Basin Hub and our data systems. This includes transitioning to a fully digital project intake process where implementers can submit their projects directly onto the Basin Hub, and then the MRWAC team reviews them against our eligibility criteria before they're added to the portfolio. At the same time, we'll keep enhancing the Basin Hub itself, ensuring it remains usable and transparent and capable of integrating the monitoring tools that I mentioned. And a key part of this is combining project reported data with basin scale satellite data so we can track outcomes. And also in 2026, we are moving from planning and getting projects in our portfolio into deeper implementation through partnerships and collective action. So we'll continue to do targeted outreach through webinars, one-on-one conversations, ultimately with the goal of connecting companies and funders with project implementers and projects that align with shared water challenges. So a key priority for us next year is formalizing these multi-stakeholder partnerships to implement projects throughout the Mississippi River Basin and to begin aggregating the collective impact of those projects. Okay, and then another main thing that we'll be doing next year is we're aligning our work with broader basin-wide frameworks, including collaboration with America's Watershed Initiative. This will help us ensure that our efforts are fitting within larger watershed priorities, such as the priorities of the Mississippi River Watershed Partnership. And it'll also better help make sure that our projects are leveraging other types of collaborations and partnerships, such as opportunities for public-private partnerships. And so those are our priorities for next year. The only other priority is that we are exploring options to support the long-term sustainability of the collaborative itself, so that MRWAC operations and project funding can continue. Okay, with that, we're going to hop right back into Q&A. If you have questions for us about the Basin Hub, or if you have questions for the project implementers, now is a great time to ask those. We can spend a little over probably 10 or so minutes on Q&A. So feel free to ask your questions.
And I've answered a few in chat. I'll just read them
Okay.
while others are maybe entering questions. There was a question from Kyle Day a bit ago that says, new to this group, there's a cost share. Is there a cost share for projects that we could implement into the watershed, thinking on agriculture and water projects that we've started and will be starting in the future? And my thinking is that if a project has been started, but there's a funding gap that remains, this could be filled by a corporate partner. It could be a really great project to fold into MRWAC, into the portfolio, as Christine just noted how that would work. And then the specific accounting and tracking of benefits for the individual corporate funders and the overall MRWAC goal, that could be worked out, as I mentioned earlier, generally with a kind of a pro rata cost share approach is what we would follow to keep those numbers clear. And then another question from Flora, if we've already have a regenerative program in place on our farms located in the Mississippi watershed, can we integrate these farms into the initiative? These farms are already monitored, so really great to hear that you've already got some activity that would be potentially applicable. And I said, yeah, my initial thought is this looks like a strong opportunity to try to integrate, particularly if there's a pathway to expand the program with additional funding. If the work has already been implemented and fully funded, those are maybe sort of a little bit in the past to consider, but if there's a chance to learn from those initial implementation opportunities and expand to more land and perhaps pull in additional funding to support that, that would be, I think, very applicable to MRWAC. And I think Amanda Pinelli has her hand up. So I don't know are we able to unmute her,
Yes,
Christine?
let me see if I can unmute. I just clicked allow mic. So Amanda, are you able to speak?
Perfect. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
My Q&A is not functioning, so I apologize for jumping in and raising my hand. But I'm Amanda Pinelli from NatureX Foundation. My question is, because we're working on a project that is a nitrogen reduction project that via parametric insurance that can be applicable across acreage, is there some kind of connection point with the potential funders and corporates and others involved in sponsoring projects that might be able to put a call out there for which regions and specific areas they're looking for projects? That way we can also seek to adapt and respond to that.
Do you want to take that,
That's
Christine,
a-
or do you want me to- yeah?
Sure, I'll start, and then Laura, if you have anything to add. I think that's a really interesting question. Can we basically share a map of where companies are interested in investing? I'm not sure. I mean, we are doing that without sharing a map per se. We're having conversations with companies. We're asking them where they're interested, and we're doing our best to align those interests with the projects in our portfolio, in addition to where we're finding concentrated hotspots of the most significant water challenges. It's something that we can explore. We'll be doing a lot of corporate engagement next year, and so I think it's something that certainly our project team can discuss.
Yeah,
Laura,
I'll just add it.
curious if you have,
Yeah, I can add on a little bit. We've done some, as Christine noted, we've done some screening level modeling of, again, nutrient related hotspots through the Mississippi, and so that's information that I think we can build from to look at possibilities. I'll just say that there's only 4 projects that were showcased today, but as we're learning in the chat, there's a lot of other opportunities, including the unique work that you're leading, Amanda. So I think an important step, I think, in the next phase of work going into 2026 is to make sure that these project opportunities are visible to companies that perhaps are joining today for the first time, haven't been involved, and say, wow, I'm really curious about where the projects could be implemented, the kind of activities they are, the kind of benefits. Do they align with an individual company's goals and programs? Making sure that information is shared. And I think the Basin Hub is really the intention of that is to help do that sharing. And I do think some one-on-one outreach is valuable. So I think as companies show interest in MRWAC in general, I think making sure that you're reaching out to Christine, Limnotech as well, to say, hey, we really want to get involved in, these are the kind of projects that really are appealing to us. And so we can, part of the value of MRWAC is to help with that matchmaking process. And then once those regions are identified, maybe narrowing down specific locations. So I think I would just put a call out there for any organizations that are curious about parametric nitrogen insurance and exploring that topic. Definitely reach out to Amanda. I'm happy to share contact information if you don't have it. Great. So another question from Doug. Are you looking at the timeline for Gulf Hypoxia Action Plan, the 2035 final goal date, in terms of quantifying results, or at least the activity in the basin over that time frame? So I think what you're asking is well, I can reiterate, maybe Anouk, you can help me on this, but I mean, our definition of the goal was sort of informed by the 2035 action plan for the hypoxia Gulf Hypoxia Action Plan, sorry. And so that was really the foundation when we did set the goal. And I think as we're looking at results, we'll certainly want to, in parallel, continue to track the progress of the hypoxia task force. We do have a call set in January, I think, to connect closer with EPA and learn more about where that program is going. I'm not sure if there's folks on the call that represent. Anouk or Christine, anything to add to that response?
Nope,
that was good.
That was good, yes.
Okay, great, thanks. Another one from Jennifer Stack. Do projects have a time-bound structure, i.e. are they set up to last for 5 years to make the investment needed clear to the participating organizations? I think there's generally a lot of flexibility, and it's going to be unique how a particular project is funded and the duration of that project as far as implementation and anticipated benefits. I can speak to a couple examples that are common in the water stewardship space. Often when companies, corporations are supporting a water stewardship project, a lot of the funding often occurs sort of at the beginning. And if, say, it's a restoration type project like we heard about, all of the costs related to implementation as well as monitoring and tracking might be understood at the beginning. And typically corporations are comfortable paying that in one lump sum up front. And I'm not saying that's always the case, but often that's how it occurs. And then the project was implemented, and then after the implementation is when the benefits would start to be generated, such as reduced runoff or infiltration or flood protection, and whether those are volumetric and water quality benefits. We hope that in many cases that project is meant to sustain for a long time, multiple years into the future. And typically in water stewardship best practice, there's an expectation that in order for a corporation to communicate and claim benefits that they've contributed to, they would need to have assurance that that project is continuing to function as designed, as intended, X years into the future. So what's very common now is during that sort of that setup of contributing to a project, there's an expectation of monitoring that might occur 2, 3, 5, 10 years into the future, so that there's the project implementers are checking on that project. Are the trees still alive? Has the wetland filled with sediment? We hope that's not the case. What are the important performance characteristics that need to be checked on? And as long as there's assurance that the project is performing, though the company paid up front for the project, that benefit, they can still acknowledge that benefit occurs year after year after year. Sort of thinking about different types of projects. Typically a nature-based solution often has a very long duration, or can have the potential for a longer duration of benefits. 5 years into the future, very reasonable. 10 years can be common. Once in a while, maybe a company would look beyond 10 years. But again, in order to think about that benefit in the future, you want to make sure that the project's being maintained and monitored in such a way that that assurance is there. When we start thinking about agriculturally focused projects, often what it involves practices implemented by farmers, and perhaps those farmers are being compensated to put those practices in place. Those sometimes have a different timescale. Sometimes it's payment that they need to be receiving every year in order to be assured that those practices are in place. And so those may have a shorter duration. And so something to look closely at with the project. Ideally, we want to develop a set of project portfolios that are a portfolio of projects that are, not going to just stop performing, right? We want to see those benefits come 2035. They're still impactful in that future timeline. So I think it's just to kind of wrap this topic up. I think it's a project by project basis what the appropriate duration is to consider those benefits. And we'll want to make sure, Limnotech does a lot of this work, and we always are understanding different kinds of activities and what's a reasonable duration to assume. And then if a corporation is helping fund that project, we want to make sure there's clear communication on expectations of when funding comes into the project and what are the expectations for operation, maintenance, monitoring, X years into the future, so that expectations are met and there's no surprises moving forward. Okay, great. I think we've covered all the questions. I haven't seen anything new pop up, but really, really great dialogue. I'm very excited to hear about all the new names and faces to me that are curious about MRWAC, and really, again, the nice selection of projects that we were able to just share with you today and get you all excited about. So back over to you, Christine, to wrap things up.
Thank you so much, Laura. As we wrap up, I want to highlight a few ways to stay engaged with MRWAC depending on your role. One is for project implementers. Continuing to strengthen the project portfolio is essential, which means submitting new projects or advancing existing ones through the Basin Hub so that there's a strong pipeline of credible opportunities in our portfolio. So the call to action for project implementers is get in contact with us and submit your projects so we can vet them against our eligibility criteria. For companies and corporate partners, a next step is to explore the project portfolio. We'll be sharing the list of projects that we shared today as a follow-up to this webinar, but also the Basin Hub is a great place to look at the project portfolio list as well. This is to learn more about what's available. You can ask us questions, and you can hopefully identify projects that align with your own water stewardship priorities. And then finally, sustaining the Basin Collaborative and sustaining basin-wide collective action over time requires coordination and resources. And so for organizations seeing the value in the kind of basin-wide coordination work and are interested in deeper engagement, there's multiple ways to support MRWAC's collective action efforts, including playing a leadership role in MRWAC, providing funding for things like in-person events, or just helping enable the work that strengthens the project pipeline or supports other sorts of in-person convenings. So overall, this is an invitation to everyone to engage and follow up with us after the meeting. And we just thank you all, the presenters and the attendees for coming today. And so we will conclude with that, and thank you all. And we're looking forward to staying engaged and following up with you all.
Thank you all. I appreciate it. Thank you, Dr. Curtis and the team. Laura, Liv.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
so
everyone.
much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.